All right, we are officially live. Welcome back to episode 4 of Let Me Explain. If you guys have a better name for this startup series, you can put it in the description. Thinking of calling it Startup Story, something around the concept of the word startup. Today is a very important day because we're going to be exposing, love that word, right? It's a nice little clicky word, exposing the Audea algorithm, what it takes to get discovered on our algorithm, why our algorithm I think is unique, and some of the downsides of our algorithm at being at a startup where we don't have tons and tons and tons of data, because that's what really differentiates a lot of algorithms from other ones. But also, what are some of the upsides as a result of having a pretty brand new algorithm that is not inundated with all of the problems and biases of the algorithms that exist on the current platforms. Let me just tweet out that I am live officially, so people get to know that we are live here. And then we will get this show on the road and we will start talking. Thank you, 9 people, for being here live now. There it is out there on Twitter. Aaron C, what's up? Jason, what's up? Ray, what's up? Now I'm putting one comment in the chat. Jeremy Stackwiz, what's up? Quarantine Quartet. Some of you guys already follow me there, but we need to grow this Instagram, baby. We need to grow the Instagram. Why? Because a lot of the content in relationship to my startup needs a platform, and that platform, unfortunately, is not the Twitter platform that I currently have. It's not the YouTube platform. That's more of the finance stuff. And I love those platforms. They mean a lot to me, but we need to grow this damn Instagram. So Instagram is in the chat. Please make sure you are following the Instagram. I will follow back. I have zero ego when it comes to following people back on Instagram. I don't care. I just followed like 20 people today. Some of them no profile, some of them this, some of that. I actually like seeing the lives of people. It's fun to sometimes stalk my subscribers. There's a subscriber who lives in Singapore, and I like stalk his life, and he has this like little 2-year-old, and it's so cute just seeing him like kind of take him to dinner and stuff. So it's really fun. So I want to follow you guys. So please make sure you follow. Thanks for the follow back. I haven't posted in 2 years. See, yeah, I think Instagram's kind of dying in terms of like average people posting, and now it's like only for the like people who want to be influencers or whatever. And I guess I want to be an influencer. I want to influence. So I am indeed on Instagram. I'm gonna tell my wifey to follow you. Yes, tell your wifey, tell your side chick, tell your mistress. I mean, they're going to want to follow me anyway because, they're going to want to slide into the DMs. But tell everybody who you got to follow. Mark, what's up? Thank you for being here. All right. So we're going to get started on our discussion today. Today is going to be a very interesting discussion because we are going to be talking about the Audea algorithm. First of all, before I start, let me say happy Monday. Thank you all for joining me. I don't know if it's lunchtime for you. I don't know what you're doing right now, but I appreciate you taking your time and spending time listening to me talk about my startup and not necessarily about stocks or finance. But I appreciate it. It means the world to me. Today, we're going to get into a discussion around algorithms, why they are so important, what is so necessary about these algorithms, how they fundamentally differentiate your product offering from another product offering. And any questions in the chat, please put them as we have a discussion. And then we're going to be talking about Audea's algorithm and what's the point of our algorithm and how I think our algorithm is going to be meaningful over the next couple of years as we scale the platform. All right, Jason, I don't do Instagram or Twitter. Well, thank you for being on YouTube. That's all I can say. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me. Here we go. Why do algorithms matter in the context of social media and in the context of content platforms? This is a question that I've been thinking about for a very long time, primarily because, I grew up with these social platforms. I remember the first time I got on Facebook, it was 2009. My mom, I come home from school. Mind you, I'm in 6th grade at the time. And my mom's like, hey, you got to get on this thing that's called Facebook. And I'm like, Facebook? What the hell is Facebook? Well, what's so interesting about Facebook? And my mom had just joined Facebook, right? And she's finding like long lost friends from India from like the 1980s and shit. And she's like, holy crap, like this guy's married, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you got to get on it. Little did she know that making me get on Facebook was going to be the most addicting experience over the next 2 years. I mean, she got me on Facebook December 6, 2009. I had 3 girls that were in 6th grade that I really liked. Like, I was just like, I like these girls. And so I added them on Facebook and they like kind of responded to my messages and I was like, we were talking on Facebook. We're like, now when we saw each other in school, it wasn't as awkward because we actually had a conversation with each other. And I was like, holy crap, this Facebook thing is really cool. Since then, I remember from 2009 to 2011, explicitly those 2 years, I was addicted to Facebook. Right? I was on that platform. Like it was nobody's business. I mean, I'm like, that platform was everything. It was how I, flirted with girls, all this stuff, how I discovered new experiences. It was everything to me. So I grew up with these algorithms. I'm sure a lot of people grew up with these algorithms and these social platforms. The one unique thing about Facebook and Instagram back 10 years ago when I was using it was primarily this idea around the social graph, right? This concept that, hey, you join a platform, your friend joins a platform, you and your friend know these two people, which means you probably know these other two people. And then Facebook, the platform, the content curator, takes the content that they think is interesting to you based upon the connections you have with your friends, and they push it in your face. And they're like, hey, this is the content we want you to see. This is the content we want you to consume. And as a result of that, you're going to be consuming this content. That algorithm has changed since really 2019. Facebook used to operate from 2005 to 2019 based on this thing called the social graph, and TikTok forced them to change it at a fundamental level. And, in a nutshell, we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but what TikTok forced them to do is say, instead of focusing on things you are socially connected to. So, Jessica's husband's brother might be interested in fishing. And because you are tangentially related to Jessica's husband's brother, you might be interested in fishing because Jessica was one of your best friends. We're going to show you fishing content. Instead of that being the barometer to decide what type of content enters into your feed, now it is primarily rooted in interest. So if you like or comment or engage or watch something a little bit longer or share a piece of content that is rooted in fishing, then the algorithm now magically knows that you care about fishing, and they're going to keep pumping more fishing content into your feed. Now, why is this important? The algorithm dictates our perspectives and viewpoints on the world. And this is something, no one can argue this. No one can get out of this argument. This is just an objective fact. I mean, literally today, we've had Tucker Carlson, who has been fired, for a lack of a better term, from Fox News. And as a result of this Dominion lawsuit that caused Fox News to pay $780 million, by the way, Fox News only had $4 billion in cash on hand. So 25% of their cash on hand went to paying a lawsuit, has resulted in them having to make some cuts. Tucker Carlson gets 3.2 million average viewers a night, which means he has the highest rated television show on the planet. Tucker Carlson is not known to the entire world, right? But he's still a pretty mainstream figure. What accentuates and propagandizes his messages, his ideas, his thoughts, his belief onto many more people than 3.2 million a night is an algorithm. And that algorithm is in the form of a platform. So, there have been countless times I've been on YouTube where I'm just scrolling and I see a random Tucker Carlson video. Now, the title and the thumbnail needs to be interesting enough to get someone to click. But if that algorithm catches you at the right moment and you click on that, you might end up entering into the world of not only Tucker Carlson, but Fox News, which is incredibly important for Fox News or any other mainstream media outlet, because now they get to keep your attention and they can get you to watch the actual TV show. They can get you into their world of the types of content that they promote onto their audiences. And so that algorithm controls a lot of the content. We've also seen some controversy with another conservative talk show host named Matt Walsh, who is part of the Daily Wire, who is basically YouTube has said, hey, we're not monetizing any of your content unless you acquiesce to these particular norms. He's not willing to acquiesce to those particular norms, which means the algorithm is not going to show him to new people. And that algorithm determines pretty much everything in the context of social media. So there's three core fundamental reasons why an algorithm matters at the end of the day. Number one, it controls the type of content you see. The perspectives and the information that you think is important in the world is always influenced by the algorithm on whatever social platform you're using that you consume content on. If that stuff doesn't pop up, you don't see it. If that stuff pops up, you see it. The way a lot of you discovered me was I popped up into the feed. And if that algorithm did not allow me to pop in the feed, you would have no idea who the hell I am, which means you wouldn't even be here in the first place. That algorithm is everything. The second thing is that the algorithm is a hedge against mainstream media. And again, we're going to talk about Audea's algorithm in a second, but I want to lay the foundation for why an algorithm is so important. This is a big topic, and this is something I would love to talk about. This context of hedging against the mainstream media, as we're talking about Fox News and Tucker Carlson, one of the biggest hedges against established news organizations, essentially companies that have a monopoly on information and have a monopoly on the distribution of information, is an algorithm. The algorithm is the ability for a platform to say, hey, there's a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you're from Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or, CNBC. If you have an opinion on stocks, you can still put that content out there into the world, even though CNBC is a multi-billion-dollar media company. And, their ability to produce a volume of content and a particular type of quality of content does not hinder your ability to get discovered when it comes to creating finance content, particularly on YouTube, because there is an algorithm. Now, let's think for a second about what that means. The idea that you could hedge back against the mainstream media because there is a equalizing force in society, i.e. this thing called an algorithm. And we're going to talk about all the negative ramifications about algorithms in a second. But the fact that it's even possible in today's day and age to say something, put out a piece of content in the world, written, audio, video, and have an algorithm decide that instead of this multi-billion-dollar news organization having the means of how people understand the world, your content, you as an individual creator, as an individual, person that has an opinion on the world, can get that viewpoint discovered. That to me, I mean, going back to the beginning of this talk, I grew up with these platforms. I grew up with these algorithms, and I didn't even recognize that these things are changing everything. Like, I'm growing up with Facebook. I'm growing up with Instagram. I used Twitter a lot in high school, then I didn't use it in college, and now I'm back on it. I grew up with these platforms, and I didn't realize that the core thesis behind what I believe is the revolutionary aspect of these platforms is that anybody has an opportunity not only to get discovered, but to hedge back against the mainstream narrative. So, I mean, let's talk about the best example, right? Elon Musk. Why did he pay $44 billion to buy a platform rooted in frankly, censorship? Is because he wanted to have open and free speech. And with all the mainstream media arguments around Tesla, whether they're right or wrong, I particularly think they're wrong, but with all the mainstream media arguments out there around the issues with Tesla as a company, the issues with Elon as a CEO, et cetera, the one equalizing force, the one pushback against those institutions are these content platforms that have algorithms that create discovery mechanisms. The reason Tesla doesn't pay for advertising is because Tesla can post one tweet, garner 78 million impressions. It would cost GM $200,000-$300,000 to get even a tenth of those level of impressions on that same platform. And they can push back against the mainstream narrative. And so to me, this is incredibly interesting because if you have an idea that is counterintuitive from the rest of the world, if you have an idea that is fundamentally different than how people think, like, for example, I think that the behemoth that exists in audio, which is Spotify, does not have a discovery mechanism that is meaningful enough for most creators to get discovered. That is a contrary opinion. That is a contrarian perspective. And I have a lot of ideas and examples and concepts for why I believe I'm correct. The only way for me to get many more people to believe in that idea and to feel the depths of how I think that idea can lead to a lot of unique outcomes if we take it to its logical extreme, which is we make a different platform that does what I think Spotify can't do, is I need the algorithms on these social platforms to be a hedge against the, hundreds of millions of dollars that Spotify spends on digital advertising. And so this is one of the reasons why an algorithm is so important. It's like if a platform has an algorithm and that algorithm can show your content to people that otherwise would have never known you, would have never found out about who you are, that to me is the greatest opportunity of all time. And when I say that, I mean, that's why I'm building the startup. It's either gonna work or it's either gonna fail, but it's gonna be based off this premise that we're going for everything. Like, we are going for everything. And to me, what going for everything means is you're owning the means of how information is distributed and ultimately consumed. So instead of building a media company, I want to build a platform that controls the media. And I think the only way you do that is if people feel there is an opportunity for not only them to get discovered, but for them to push back against mainstream narratives, because there is something that is the great equalizer of our society, i.e. an algorithm showcasing your content to people that would have otherwise not seen it. I mean, just think of television channels. Like, I remember when I used to watch television, I don't watch it anymore, but when I used to, when I was a kid, there would be like Nickelodeon, TBS, TNT. I mean, there were just such a limited diversity of choices that had brand recognition that was enough for me to even think of those things as like meaningful sources of entertainment / information, that I would click on them and whatever popped up. And that's what I consumed. I mean, shit, in 2015, I was going to vote for Bernie Sanders. I was like, yep, got to eat the rich. 8 years later, I'm like, well, I want to be the rich. And my perspectives have changed primarily because of, encountering many different people because of these algorithms, to come to a realization that I don't think it's unethical for billionaires to exist. I want to try to be the billionaire. And what allowed me to come to that conclusion, outside of, macroeconomics 101 in college, was more perspectives that I was able to understand via algorithms on social content. So that was incredibly important. Last thing I'll say on this argument for why algorithms matter. So number one, it controls the type of stuff you see and it determines your basis for understanding the world. Number two, it's a hedge against the mainstream media. Number three, which is intertwined with number two, it is an opportunity. And at the end of the day, all we can ask for is an opportunity. That is the only thing we have on our side in this lifetime, right, is an opportunity. Do I have an opportunity for people to know who I am? And as a result of that opportunity, can I take advantage by locking them into my world? And if I lock them in my world enough, and if they care enough, I can keep them on my side and ultimately retain my control and influence that I have over those people. Now, the mainstream media has hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to be able to spend in terms of marketing, advertising, promotion, production, etc., to maintain their monopoly of control and maintain their monopoly of power. And when I say mainstream media, I don't want to say it in a negative sense. It's just these are the biggest institutions in the world. They are not controlled by the hosts. The hosts are just the bullets in the gun, right? They're just the clogs in the machine. Ultimately, there are special interests that are controlling these organizations. And whether that's good, whether that's bad, that's subjective. But these people, these institutions have agendas that they want to get out into the world. And they have a lot of money and power to be able to control their ability for those agendas to get out into the world. The hedge against that is individual people having an opportunity to also have their ideas getting out into the world. Now, you may ask a question a bit, why is this so important? Why does it matter that individual people have an idea, have an opportunity for their voice to hedge back against CNBC? Why is it important for them to have a voice against Fox News or CNN? And I would argue the simple answer is that, what is the purpose of creativity? If anything, it is to express yourself, and that expression deserves somewhat of an audience in order for that creativity to matter, right? You can be screaming at your walls the whole day about your contrarian narrative about the nature of the universal basic income, but unless you have an audience to somewhat get your argument, that policy never has a chance to get enacted if that's what your agenda is, and people don't have a chance to join your tribe, your movement around getting a certain policy enacted if we're talking about it from a political perspective. So you need the hedge, you need the opportunity for any creative field in order for that idea to get discovered. Not to mention, if you want to market a new product, to start up a business, you need that algorithm on your side. And if that algorithm gets on your side, then that algorithm actually has a chance to get you discovered. Amit, do a What's in My Fridge episode. You know what's in my fridge? You know what's in my fridge? I'm about to open what's in my fridge right now. That right there is ambition, because I'm hungry. Okay, that's what we got in my fridge. Now, moving on. Algorithms. What are algorithms at the end of the day? So I saw an interview with the TikTok CEO. Okay, TikTok CEO, he got absolutely destroyed by Congress. All right, so he wasn't that prepared. He got hit by Congress. However, he just did a TED interview at the TED conference that cost $25,000 a ticket to go, which is, a very interesting conference if it costs $25,000 a ticket to go. But nonetheless, TikTok CEO, he's there. And for 40 minutes, the dude is asking him, what's the point of TikTok? Why do we care about TikTok? Why is TikTok so important? What is the goal of TikTok, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I kid you not. And I would love people, if you're interested in this, you should just listen to it in the background. For 40 minutes, this TikTok CEO is talking about one single word, and it is interconnected to algorithms. But the first word, which is the most important word of what he talked about, is discovery. That's it. For 40 minutes, he is talking about why TikTok is so important for discovery. Now, a couple of reasons why. Number one, the TED interviewer is asking him, what's the point of TikTok? Like, why is TikTok so important? And his answer is that the goal of TikTok is to get creators discovered. And what he means by that is that the nature of how the algorithms are structured, and this is incredibly important because this is different than how Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube were all created. They were created in order to make sure that there was a basis for a social interface that determined how people would get discovered, how content would get consumed, how people would interconnect with each other. And that was their primary purpose, right? Social media. TikTok is not social media. TikTok is entertainment media. And entertainment media says, hey, anyone has an opportunity, if you have a little bit of talent, to actually show your content to more people in the world and ultimately get discovered. So the goal of TikTok, in its core, it's the philosophy around this product, is around discovery. And I cannot stress how many times the CEO of TikTok is just like, discovery, discovery, discovery. Discovery is all that matters. All we care about is being a window for people to discover. Now, why is he saying this from a business perspective before we get into the algorithms and how they do this? Number one, if you get people discovered, they never leave your platform. It's that simple. If you get people constantly discovered on your app, more and more people will constantly stay on that app because they have an opportunity to penetrate the consciousness of the other users on that app and then ultimately get discovered. So they've got to feel that the business use case argument of the platform is this core thesis around discovery. And remember, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, that was never their core thesis. Their core thesis was always around connection. It was never about discovery. Now it's shifted to discovery, but the problem is the algorithms just aren't as good as TikTok, in my opinion, even though they're getting better, but they aren't as good because they weren't built with the core philosophy around discovery. The second thing that he stressed is that, he talked about an example where he met a pizza restaurant in Arizona that just crossed $1 million in revenue because they posted engaging TikTok videos about their restaurant. I mean, that right there is enough of a reason for any small business owner in America to say that, I don't care if it's from China, I don't care if it's from Bangladesh, I don't care where the hell it's from. We should not ban that app. Now, politically, you can think whatever you want, but when a restaurant crosses $1 million in revenue, and by the way, pays taxes on those $1 million of revenue and employs people and gives jobs because they were able to drive $1 million of revenue, that is because they drove demand. That demand came from a funnel. That funnel came from engaging content on a platform that had the demand already on the back end, i.e. 800 million people that are willing to consume a random piece of content from a random store in Arizona that they have no real emotional connection to. And that drove business results because that pizza store was able to sell $1 million in 2022. That right there is the core philosophy of TikTok and why discovery is so fundamentally important in the context of their algorithm. Now, how does their algorithm work? I want to talk about this for a little bit because it'll bleed into how Audea's algorithm works and what the nature of our algorithm is in the first place. The beautiful thing about content platforms is user-generated content. Those three words to me are those are my, after figure it out, those are my three favorite words on the entire planet. Because user-generated content means you have theoretically an unlimited amount of variables to be able to index and then hedge and hypothesis against what you've indexed in order to figure out how to recommend content. What is the goal of any media company / media platform? Let's show something to John, to Kelly, to Jacob that they're going to care. And John cares about something different than Kelly. So we need to make sure when Kelly turns on this channel or when Kelly logs onto this app or when John is scrolling through this feed, they find the stuff that's relevant to them. And if they don't, they leave. So the job of a platform, of a media company is very simple. We need to make sure that we create engaging content or we create the infrastructure for people to discover engaging content that is relevant to them. The only way you do that, the only way, is by indexing particular variables embedded within user-generated content that allows you to do this. Now, what are some of those variables? And, the TikTok CEO was asked about this. He was like, all right, so, how do you come up with this algorithm that's so amazing? What do you actually do? And quite frankly, he said, look, our algorithm is not that much better because our talent is not that much better from Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, right? These are the smartest engineers in the world that have dedicated their lives to figure out how to get you to click on more ads. So it's not like the algorithm is that fundamentally differentiated. What is different is that the math behind the algorithm combined with the philosophy of the algorithm in the first place is what creates that unique experience. And that is what I think Audea is going to be able to differentiate on when we're able to hit more of a bigger scale. What is that math? How many times you like, how many times you share, how many times you comment, how many times you engage, how many times you, what is the view duration of the video? How many times you swipe immediately versus how many times you click on the profile and check out other pieces of content of that creator? How many impressions does a post have? All of these variables in the context of user-generated content are then indexed. And as a result of them being indexed, they are then torn into this big machine. That machine indexes it with all these other users that are doing all these other different things, and they come up with a suggestion. And it's honestly one of the most interesting things in the world because AI and machine learning is only enhancing that. I don't know if it will replace it one day. I don't think it can because at the end of the day, the only way for it to replace it is if AI is making the content and suggesting and recommending the content, which is going to be hard to do. But at the end of the day, if you've got the content, AI can then accelerate and accentuate the ability for that content to get discovered. Palantir Research says they just gather more user info. Yes, they gather more user info, but it's because they're able to generate that user info because of the philosophy embedded within the platform. What do I mean by that? Let's say on TikTok, you have 10 videos that pop up. All 10 of these videos are from people you don't know. And because of the philosophy of the platform, discovery, you are willing to discover all 10 of these pieces of content. You're willing to discover something from Arizona, and then the next one is something from the Netherlands, even though you really have no connection to either of them. But TikTok might think that you care about these. as a result of the process by which TikTok is trying to figure out what you care about. And it only takes them really on average, I think they said a couple of minutes to really figure out like what is stuff you are potentially interested in. And out of the billions of videos we have uploaded every single day, how can we pull the subset of the subset of the subset of the subset of those videos based upon the viewing habits that you've had because you were willing to discover in the first place, because you didn't say no to a piece of content and then left the platform just because it wasn't interesting. You had a little bit more sympathy in the context of the content that was recommended to you. That then shows you a piece of content within that subset. And if they get it right, at least one out of every couple times, you're going to start to stay because you're going to start to enjoy the content. You're going to think it's more interesting. You're going to think it's more unique. You're going to think like, this is something cool I want to check out. God forbid you go to the creator's profile and now you go down a rabbit hole of all this content that you can just endlessly consume. I did that last week with a girl. She's like 6 feet tall. And I was like, not only she's pretty, she's super tall. She's like a model and she had a quirky laugh. And then I'm just like, next thing you know, I'm like, balls deep in all of her content and I'm just like consuming it. She did have a boyfriend, relationship content. I'm a sucker for it. Like I love relationship content. So I'm watching her and her boyfriend on the beach and all the next thing you know, I'm like, this is it's so cool. Like I just like I'm inside of her life and it's like, you know, I could have watched like a movie on Netflix, but I'm inside of this random girl's life who lives in California, consuming all of her content because that algorithm got me at the right place at the right time. That is the fundamental difference with the algorithm on TikTok and how they've constructed a meaningful chance for people to get discovered versus the algorithm on other types of social platforms. Now, why have I spent so much time on this before we get into Audea's algorithm? I believe that if Audea's algorithm can mimic the philosophy of TikTok's algorithm outside of all of the political stuff, if we can mimic the philosophy of that, then we have a real shot to win. And we have a real shot to win because I don't see any of the other audio platforms doing this. I don't think they have the proprietary data to do this. And this gets a little bit more technical in terms of, you know, they source content from RSS feeds. So the level of data they have is kind of similar to other platforms in terms of the level of data they have. I think they have political stakeholders that control the platform, especially in the context of the music industry, right? Spotify, 75% of every dollar goes to the record labels. So the record labels are going to have a very big say in terms of how the content is ultimately discovered and consumed. And if there's a certain album that's coming out and that album has to get discovered, then, you know, if the record label wants it to get discovered, it's going to get discovered, which means I think there's a differentiated approach we have towards that. That's important. Sean asked, did Clubhouse break or prove the algo model? That's a really good question. I want to answer that before I get into Audea's algorithm and what we have. Tony G says, sounds like you're stalking a tall chick. Well, I kind of am. It's through the TikTok content. I am stalking a little bit. Did Clubhouse break or prove the algo model? I think Clubhouse is a unique concept. And this is actually a great question because I wanted to talk about Clubhouse. I was thinking of doing a whole episode on them. I might do that, but I'll take this opportunity to talk about this. For those that don't know, Clubhouse is essentially a live audio chat room. Think of it as Twitch for audio. You go on the app, you scroll through it, you see what rooms are live, and then you click on those rooms, and then you're able, you know, to consume content based upon people talking with each other. I believe Clubhouse is an utter failure, in my opinion. Now, what do I mean by failure? It's a company that's valued at $4 billion. It's still number 15 in the news section of iOS, so they're still probably getting 50 to 60,000 downloads a day. And, you know, they haven't made a dime of revenue. Maybe they make some revenue. Their CEO has talked about how he has embraced crypto as the monetary model. Good luck. $4 billion valuation, embracing crypto. The only thing they're going to have to do is pump a coin at the end of the day in order for that to make sense. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if people are willing to pay subscriptions. They're anti-advertising. So there's a lot of issues in the context of the business. The reason it's not a failure for any of those reasons. It's a failure to me because it has not structured itself through an algorithm to create discovery. Everyone that is against algorithmic content, like to me, they are fundamentally ignoring the business opportunity and business use cases. And everyone, even if you're not starting a business, you need a little bit of attention to get anything done. So if you're anti-algorithm, to me, you're anti-business, you're anti-people chasing their dreams. Frankly, you're anti-American because America is the land of the free, the home of the brave. You got to chase your dreams in this great country that we have. So if you're anti-algorithm, to me, you're anti-American. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is, Clubhouse doesn't have an algorithm. Clubhouse has these set of live rooms. And I know Clubhouse doesn't have an algorithm because I go on that app every day and I try to find something I'm interested in. And they just, either they don't have the data or they don't care about utilizing that data to show me something I care about. Or the bigger problem, which is why I think Clubhouse has failed, is that live audio is not algorithmic. I mean, the reason people don't grow a following on Twitch and they grow a following on YouTube, and this is every Twitch superstar has said this, is because when you are live, it is very hard for a platform to recommend algorithmically, which is again how the recommendation structure works. It has to be through an algorithm. It has to be through an algorithm. If it's not through an algorithm, it's pure luck. And that doesn't happen that often. If you are live and the person who cares about your content, their synergy is not live at the same time that you are live, you're done, right? So if I care about basketball talk and I care about the New York Knicks beating the Cavs, if I'm not live at 7 p.m. or 10 p.m., whenever the Clubhouse content is live talking about the New York Knicks versus the Cavs, I never get to discover those people that are live at the same time, which is why live audio to me, it never made sense. It's a great connection tool. And the people that are using it, if they're using it to connect, that's great. There is not a business argument for connection unless people are willing to pay $5, $6 a month for connection. And maybe they are. But at the tune of a $4 billion valuation, you need a lot of people to pay $5, $6 a month. And I don't think there's that many people in the world that are really willing to pay that, because that connection does not offer value in the context of business. And that's what these platforms are about. They're about business. They're about marketing. They're about how can I get my message in front of more people. Paying for, a nice conversation is fine, but are you going to pay every single month? Are you going to keep paying some reoccurring subscription to have an hour or two a week, maybe on a platform to listen to some thoughts? It's like, no, there's too much content. Content is the commodity. And I don't think Clubhouse understood that. Content is the commodity. So the ability to discover and find content, that's like, you can do that anywhere. Right? So that's why people pay for Netflix, because it's premium content. If it wasn't premium, then they wouldn't be able to care about that content. So in order for content to not be a commodity, it needs to be discoverable. That is the only thing that differentiates it from the other 15 trillion pieces of content that are uploaded every day. So to me, Clubhouse is broken because the algorithmic model doesn't make sense for live audio. It just doesn't, right? Live content, it is very difficult to upload something, because you're not uploading anything, you're going live. If your audience is not live at the same time, which means how do you get that audience to show up at 7 p.m.? You've got to build a Twitter audience or an Instagram audience. So you can tell them, hey, like the 30 people that are here that are live, I tweeted this, right? And maybe that's how you discovered it, or YouTube showed it to you. That's how you discovered it. If those don't exist, there's no ability for this to live, for this to have any attention. So if you can't get your audience to come via the platform, if you need another platform that, guess what, is run by algorithms in order to notify the other people to come to the platform that's not run by algorithms, to me, the platform with algorithms has the most power in the world. And the platform that doesn't have the algorithms is not going to win. So I think the live audio model works for connectivity, and it might work for community, but I don't give a shit about community. I don't give a shit about connectivity. I care about discovery. You know why? Because that discovery leads to a community. The only content creators that are going to survive in the next 10 years, I think, are the ones that are the most authentic. I don't think average content creators are going to survive, because AI is going to eat your lunch. Netflix premium content is going to eat your lunch. To get 200 people to show up to your thing versus to go watch whatever they want, they've got to feel an emotional connection with you. That emotional connection only happens when they discover you and you keep posting, which is the ruthless grind of content creation. So they keep discovery. So you stay in their goddamn feed. You do not leave them alone until they finally think, this person, I want to have a relationship with them. I'm willing to join their live stream. Community is a byproduct of discovery. It's not the other way around. And I think we have to build Audea's platform with that philosophy in mind. I have no life, on my lunch listening to Amit. Gabe, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. 4 billion insane. Yeah, also remember, Clubhouse was propped up by the VCs. I mean, Andreessen Horowitz, they don't even use the app, bro. They're on Twitter Spaces. It's just so sad to see how it happened. It shows you how ruthless VCs are, right? 4 billion to them was like, oh, it's like a little drop in the bucket. They probably put 100, 200 million. They moved on. They wrote it off. And they were linking to the app, and they were promoting it all this. Now it's like, oh, just use Twitter Space. I mean, they invested in a Clubhouse competitor, for goodness sake, because they invested in Elon Musk with Twitter. So it's interesting how it happens, but it does happen. Amit has taken a few too many Adderall. You know what's funny? I have never consumed Adderall in my entire life. I don't even know what the drug looks like. My friends used to take it in college when they would stay up late. I stood up late many times in college for tests and exams, but I never took Adderall. I don't know. I just stayed up, but I've never taken Adderall. So Adderall is an interesting one. I've just never consumed that. Okay, let's talk about the Audea algorithm. So how have we structured our algorithm? Here's how it goes. Now, let me get into the actual breakdown, and then we'll get into some of the philosophies of it. Think of it as a pie, right? 100%. How have we structured the algorithm to be able to serve the best amount of content in the most meaningful way? So 60% of your algorithm, of your feed on Audea, audea.io/register, is content that you have selected based on the categories you signed up with. So when you sign up to a platform, they're going to say, hey, select 5 or 6 categories that you like out of this list of 15, 20 categories, and we will tailor your feed to those categories. So if you select, marketing, business, stocks, investing, crypto, we take the content that is system tagged with those pieces of categories, and then we show that into into your feed. Boom. So 6 out of 10 ideas are going to be categorically oriented towards the content you want. Then we have 15% of ideas that will then show up in your feed. So the next 1.5 ideas that are tangentially related to the categories you selected. So for example, let's say you selected marketing, business, crypto, finance, stocks, all that stuff as your core 5 categories when you signed up to the platform. Well, what is in relationship to marketing and finance and crypto and stocks? Self-development, right? There's a little bit of a Venn diagram, middle of the circle there, because if you want to make money in the stock market, theoretically, you want to develop yourself. You want to have a growth mindset. You don't want to have a victim mentality. You want to think it is possible to make money. This stuff isn't a scam. I can, learn about, dividends and index investing and all this stuff. And I can make capital allocation decisions that are not horrendous in my lifetime to be able to make some money. And so there's a little bit of motivation that goes into developing oneself from a personal growth perspective to be able to even think they have a chance to make money. I know that's how it worked for me. I mean, I had to develop myself before I was even in a mindset, and I'm still developing myself every day before I thought I could make some money. So right there, you've got a bucket of categories that we have pre-selected based on the categories you've selected that now are pulled into your feed. And as a result of that, you may discover, a motivational speech, even though you cared about finance. Finance is not a motivational speech, but there is some interlinking there, right? And because of that interlinking, that is allowed for that content to get discovered. Then we've got 10%. So the next one idea, we got 60, 15, 10. So this is 75% of content that is universal. So for example, Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News today, that's trending news everywhere, right? So if someone were to create an idea today about their thoughts on Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News, boom, you've got that one idea. And that idea is going to show up in a lot of feeds because that's universal content. That's content that pretty much everyone, like in America at least, and to some extent, right, if you care about media, that there's a chance. We're trying to take the least dumb guess on the most universal pieces of content that we can show in a feed, and we don't get killed for giving you that impression. And I'll talk about what it means to get killed for giving that impression in a second. But then that's universal content. Think of something like super funny. Like this is like a Mr. Beast video is the best example of what this next 10% of ideas are. These are the pieces of content that can be shown to anybody. And, in the context of Mr. Beast, this is really important. And Big Ray, I'll answer your question in a second. I was watching a YouTube video explaining the algorithm. And the reason Mr. Beast gets 150 million views is because YouTube has deemed that his content is worthy of being discovered by the entire platform. Right? So YouTube has said, look, 2.3 billion people can enjoy Mr. Beast content. So we're going to take his thumbnails and titles and show them to everybody. Now, that's not how YouTube works for smaller creators like myself. So like I'm in the YouTube finance space. YouTube's like, okay, there's 2 billion people using this thing monthly. There's like a couple million that care about finance. And out of those couple million, there's like a couple 100,000 that maybe care about the certain subject Amit's talking about. Let's take his videos and show it to them. And if they like it, we'll show it to more and more and more, but it's still going to be in this niche. I will never show up on like some 17-year-olds, because they're consuming teen gossip videos all day. I'm just never going to show up because, YouTube knows they will never click there is no synergy with that audience and my content. That's why the algorithm is so amazing. But with Mr. Beast, you've got the entire world. And like that 17-year-old or me might be interested in him saying that he cares about climate change, but then taking 17 billion flights and wasting all this carbon dioxide for the purpose of a video, right? We might find that enjoyable because like, why not? So we might both click on that video. Therefore, he gets those impressions. That 10% of Audea would be those types of Audeas that we deem would be more universal. And there's not a lot of them. So this is the opportunity on Audea. It's like, hey, we got to give a lot of impressions to content that we think is reasonable enough to show to a lot of people. We don't have that many standards because there's not that much content. So post as much as possible because those pieces of content are going to get the most impressions. The next 10% are completely random. So we did 75. Now we're at 85. These are random ideas, stuff that, maybe you're interesting, maybe you're not. They're totally random. We're just going to put them inside of your feed. The next, and in that 10% of those random ideas are split into a category of 5. So I should say 5% are random. And then, so 5% are random pieces of content that can show up in your feed. Any 5% of random just ideas on the platform. The other 5% are based on search. So let's say you search for Tesla. We can index that search term and just like match it to all the other words, all the other ideas we have in the platform that are titled or tagged or described, right? The metadata is associated with that keyword, Tesla. And then we can say, okay, Johnny was searching for Tesla. The 5% of ideas that show up in his feed should be Tesla oriented, right? And how do we know that? Because the title says Tesla. And so we can show you Tesla content. And that right there is also very, very, very important because a company like Spotify doesn't even do that, right? Like I've searched for things on Spotify and I'm looking into my feed, seeing if they're trying to find other content that's relevant and related to it. And it just does a horrible job at doing it because the platform is not built with discovery as the core philosophy. And I know that's a simple argument, but damn it, it's a good freaking argument because this is the reason TikTok is successful. You know, Facebook was amazing, Instagram was amazing, YouTube's amazing. They weren't built with discovery in mind. They were built with either virality, which is cheap, or connections, which is just community oriented. They weren't built with discovery. And I think if you build a platform from the bottom up with discovery, you've got a hell of a better shot at getting that random Tesla creator content discovered. It's just a hell of a better shot than if you would do it uploading it to some of the mainstream platforms. So that 5% is random, 5% is based on search. Then the next 5%, we're at 90%, is based on boosted pieces of content. So content that we think deserves to be boosted, or this is actually the last 5%, we're at 95, / trending. So pieces of content that are boosted, literally, you know, I have a button that I can press boost and that Audea is boosted for the next 24 hours. That's because I made the whole goddamn fucking platform so I can do whatever the fuck I want. No, I'm just kidding. But like the point is, yes, I have a lot of control over the content that can be boosted, and I will not have that control forever, right? I can't have that control forever because eventually that control will be monitored via AI and machine learning. But right now we don't have that fancy engineering embedded within our platform. So someone has to make the decision. And I hope I'm competent enough to make that decision. I don't always want to make that decision, but you know, for the reasonable amount of content that's getting uploaded, I can pretty much make the decision of what's like a good trending piece of content, and I can boost it myself. And so my pitch to creators has been, look, I control the button that boosts the content. I'm here, like, upload your content, your shit's gonna get boosted. I'm like, this is just like, it's a secret between you and me. Boom, it's gonna get boosted. Like, it's gonna happen, right? Because there's just, and it would happen regardless of me because there's not enough supply and demand of content. There is an imbalance of supply and demand of content on the platform. So there is attention that is underpriced. There is more demand, less supply of certain types of content. So that content's gonna get the ad space, right? The inventory of being able to get discovered in the first place. And so that's very important. Year to date, Amit has put out more word content than ChatGPT has put out text. Whoo! I'll be talking. Do you have a job or do you just trade and do YouTube? I have a job. It's called Unemployed Entrepreneur, trying to build startup to take over the world. Look, I mean, I'm pretty honest about it. I don't have a lot of income. Just, you know, I have... YouTube makes like $1,200-$1,500 a month, maybe, if you're lucky, right? And a lot of that goes off to paying my car, my insurance, all this stuff. I saved up a decent amount of money before I quit my job. I don't take a salary from any of the money that I raised for my startup. We raised, you know, $300,000. I just refuse to take a salary. I just want to put all that money back into the business. And I live with my parents. So I'm able to pay off every expense I have in terms of food, insurance, all that stuff. But like it teeters right there at the end when I have to pay it off. There's not that much left, right? So that's just the sacrifice you got to have for wanting the time to be able to go all in. And because I live with my parents, I don't have to pay rent, which is a big thing. The like to viewer ratio is through the roof. I don't even know the viewers to like ratio, so I hope it's okay. Big Ray says, how about you discover some people? Well, Mr. Big Ray, I am Big Ray is also an investor in the startup. So if I do discover those types of people you mentioned, I will not be able to do what I need to do to get you a return on that startup. I do have a legitimate question if you would like to field it. Yes, Big Ray, put the question in the chat. I would love it. John says, Amit never showed up in my feed until I started to invest in the Palantir. Then I got all the Palantir content on YouTube. Yeah, and look, that's the beauty of this shit, man. Like, YouTube knows, like, all right, John is starting to come to a point in his life where he wants to consume this type of content. We're gonna show Amit's content inside of that, and as a result of showing Amit's content inside of his feed, maybe he will like the other things that Amit cares about, and that's going to create the basis for him to care about Amit, and that's it. And so that's important. At least you're doing what you love. Yes, that is incredibly important. Amit's parents are the MVPs. Yeah, shout out to my mom. She just got knee replacement surgery today. I just got word that the surgery went good. I'm going to go see her in a couple of hours. So, yeah, man, my parents have been nothing but supportive. A lot of Indian parents are more conservative in terms of they force their kids to become doctors and engineers, and like you need to have a wife and kids by the time you're 28 and all this stuff. And my parents just never put that pressure on me. And I don't know how I got blessed with parents that didn't put that pressure on me, but they never put that pressure on me. They told me to just do what you want chase your dreams, quite frankly. And so I couldn't have been luckier from them allowing me to do that. Now, I think I did prove myself a little bit in college in terms of I started some businesses, made some money. I was able to pay for a lot of college, bought my own car, right? So I gave them the pure belief without action is nothing. So I had to do a lot of stuff to make them feel, oh, this kid is, they're taking a big risk, but they've shown in the past they have some competency in being able to pull off some things that are a bit more unusual for their age. So, at this point, we just got to let them try. And I didn't want the regret of not trying for the rest of my life. And so they've been pretty supportive. And then when we raised the money, that was also a big validation of it was a good 2 years of just being in my room and them being like, so how's it going? And I'm like, well, it's going. And then when we finally raised the money, I was just like, it's going. And now let's see how far we can go. All right. So what does our algorithm do, and why is our algorithm so important? By the way, I'm going to put the StreamYard in the chat if anyone wants to join and just ask a question, audio only or video. That's totally fine, and we can field some questions. Now, why is the Audea algorithm so different from some of the other algorithms that exist in audio? What happens in audio, especially in the big boys like Spotify and Apple, is you've got these platforms that don't really have algorithms when it comes specifically to podcast discovery. So like Apple is like one of the most widely used podcast apps in the world. The nature of a podcast is not a piece of content that is meant to be discovered. I mean, this is not just me saying this. I saw a couple TikToks yesterday from all these podcasting gurus, and they are saying the exact same shit as me. I mean, this is very well known in the context of content. It's just like, look, podcast content is not meant to get discovered. And the reason it's not meant to get discovered is because there's not an algorithmic feed that serves that content because of the way that podcasts have been distributed. So Apple, one of the biggest podcast apps in the world that's been used, still doesn't have a real discovery mechanism for content to like show up unless you subscribe or click to it, which means you found it. Like this is the irony, okay? Before we get to Audea's algorithm, this is the irony that exists in the podcasting world. The podcasting apps are showing you things you have subscribed to. And the only reason you are listening and or subscribe to those apps is because you found them. Everyone has to find it somehow on another platform that has created algorithmic discovery. Like that, when I found this out in 2021, this was one of those moments where I was like, holy crap, this is totally upside down. This makes no sense. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I've found this podcast because on Twitter, someone tweeted it. Guess how that popped up in my feed on Twitter? There was an algorithm that showed that tweet to me. The text, the copy on that tweet was interesting enough for me to click. Boom, I clicked it. Now I can subscribe to this person's content. And I think the major platforms have been lackadaisical in their ability to change that discovery process, primarily because of the philosophies in which they were built and because of the incentive structure they have to be able to distribute content that has left these platforms basically saying, hey, we don't have to do anything because Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are going to drive all the traffic. And, yeah, that might be good for them. The problem is creators get screwed because they don't have the ability, unless they have a large enough following on the other apps, to drive traffic. And how do you get a following on the other apps? Well, guess what? You've got to compete with the other billion people that are tweeting, Instagramming, TikToking all day. It's like there has to be a 2 + 2 = moment here, right? And I know I got to figure out the marketing and execution, but this is the simple bull case for Audea. Audio apps don't have algorithmic discovery. The way you discover a podcast to show up on that audio app happens via one of 3 apps: Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, right? Like call it 5 different apps. Those 5 different apps are incredibly crowded. And on those 5 different apps, you've got to be tweeting or posting a ridiculous amount of times just in order for that podcast to get some level of impressions on that app, to drive some level of awareness. And if you don't have, significant following, if you don't have 5, 6, 7,000 followers, you're going to get barely anyone that sees that content in the first place, because you've got to figure out how to break on those platforms. Again, breaking on those platforms is not easy. It is a very difficult thing to do, which is going to be the only funnel that you have to your podcast. This is the basic bull case for Audea at the end of the day. What if we flip that script? What if, and this is a big if, it's a hard if, but what if we created the network effects conducive to the platform that was rooted in audio in and of itself, created the infrastructure for discovery on that audio platform in and of itself, and had people finding and discovering and ultimately consuming and producing on that platform in one place? If we're able to do that, we are able to shift the paradigmatic approach that people have towards consuming, discovering, and finding audio. Now, the argument may be, well, Amit, consumers are pretty stubborn. They're in their, if they want to go to Spotify, if they want to go to Apple, they're going to consume that content where they are. Yeah, I agree. Nothing's changing that. What's going to change is ultimately creators finding opportunities on a new platform because the mainstream platforms aren't giving them those opportunities. And as a result, you're growing that network via the supply side, which ultimately becomes the demand side. Because if you're a creator, how many people on YouTube that create videos for YouTube also consume YouTube? That's going to happen the exact same way in the context of Audea. And as that supply of content grows, there's going to be an influx of people that ultimately discover that content that just want to consume. The very nature of a platform blowing up from the supply side, i.e. the creators, makes the demand side, i.e. the consumers, the people that are willing to consume the audio content, excited to at least give it a shot and be like, what is this, right? Like Clubhouse was such an interesting case example because not everyone was a creator on Clubhouse, not everyone was talking, but because it was blowing up, right, like a couple million downloads in weeks, it got so much coverage from the mainstream media that people just had to check it out. And if you've got a good platform that can have some decent retention, then people will stay, and then it will become a network in and of itself if you can then properly scale the network in a meaningful way. It sounds easier than it is, obviously. But that is the basic hypothesis. Audio platforms don't work for discovery. You've got to go to mainstream platforms to even have a chance to drive traffic to the audio platform for discovery. If we flip that, and then the audio platform becomes the platform that creates discovery, and you don't have to have 17,000 Twitter followers to get 15 links on your podcast, but you can get 15,000 impressions on the podcast, on the platform in and of itself, and get 35 listens. That changes everything. And I think if that changes a lot, then that'll be important. Should I invest more in making my video content into audio and post it on Audea? Yeah, why not? Also, I don't think it's an investment. You take the same thumbnail and title, you go to YouTube to mp3.com, you copy and paste the video link, it downloads as an MP3, you upload it to Audea. I mean, I will take you maybe 5 minutes at most because you've done all the work because you've already, created all the content. So this is, I just posted my TikTok, Instagram Reel, Facebook Reel, LinkedIn short form video in all 4 places, YouTube Short, 5 places, and we made the content once, right? All I did was post. Boom. I'm on 5 different platforms, and it took less than a couple minutes, right? So I think a lot of creators will recognize when they have a treasure trove of content that has not been discovered and is in audio format, or 95% of the value of it could be audio. It might come to our platform and it will be important. Okay, so what does this all mean in the context of Audea's algorithm? Again, if the mainstream platforms are not creating discovery and you've got to go to these platforms to have a funnel in order to create discovery on the mainstream platforms, if we build an algorithm with a philosophy that says embedded within everything we do is a level of discovery, then I think we win. Again, the TikTok president was really clear on this. I mean, it really... a lot of hindsight bias or whatever, confirmation bias, but it really confirmed to me that we're doing the right thing, or at least the philosophy that we're doing is the right thing. To build a new platform in today's day and age to get any level of discovery, to build a platform in today's day and age to get any level of users and growth, you need to be solving the one thing people care about, which is discovery. That's why I see all these little apps that are blowing up on the App Store, tens of thousands of users that are these like social anti-Instagram apps, and all of these apps will be dead. I mean, like none of these apps have any long-lasting value. And the reason they have no long-lasting value is because as much as we say we are anti-Instagram, we are not anti-Instagram. We are not. Instagram is the greatest thing alive. Why? Because it creates opportunity and it hedges it back against mainstream narratives to allow you to have a voice. Now, when I say Instagram is the greatest thing alive, I don't literally mean Instagram. I mean, these platforms have created opportunities for us to get discovered, for our content to matter, for our voices to matter. So they are incredibly important. And as a result of them being incredibly important, they determine the basis for what gets consumed at the end of the day. And so, if you build a platform rooted in that philosophy that actually cares about discovery, you win. All these little apps that I see that are trying to go anti the platform route. And what is the platform route? The platform route says, hey, you can gain followers and we're going to use some basic algorithms to try to show you more content and try to show your content to more people. That to me is actually, it's the greatest thing a platform can do. It's like, hey, small business store, create an account, get some followers, make some content, check out some pieces of content. We'll try to show you to more people. Boom, you have your businesses, doing numbers because of us. Any app that tries to go against that and tries to build some type of counter narrative and like, we don't care about followers. It's like, yes, you do. You know why? Because to get users, where are you advertising? On Facebook and Google. And guess what they've got? They've got a ton of people trying to get attention. So I don't want to be in that game. That game is boring. That game is not inspiring. That game is not interesting. That game is for like 13-year-olds in high school or middle school to be talking about random shit that doesn't matter. What I care about is the process of how someone gets their voice out there into the world. And if you could build the infrastructure and platform to facilitate them getting their voice out into the world, because you will be heavily rewarded for creating that platform. And those people will be heavily rewarded for having an audience. And that to me is the greatest game that anyone could. That's the game that I want to play. And so that's how we're building Audea's algorithm. Wow, 54 minutes of talking. It felt like it just flew by. Justin Bryant says, low barrier to entry, information overload, algorithm equals algorithm. That's much more important to sift through all the audio. This is a great point, Justin. So a couple of things in terms of sifting through the audio. It's a phenomenal sort of question here. I think there's two elements to this. Number one, the metadata we're collecting on the Audeas already gives us a pretty decent understanding of the content, right? So Twitter and TikTok have this problem. It is very easy to make a tweet, very easy to make a TikTok. As a result of that, you get an influx of more content. I think Twitter said they get like 500 million tweets a day, 5,000 tweets a second. So they have to have very complex algorithms to be able to understand how to do something with that content. The good problem is if we get to the point where we're getting 5,000 Audeas a second one day, like we would be a pretty big company and we would have a lot more money and we could hire a lot more engineers to be able to understand how to sift through all that data. So I think that would be the best problem in the world to have if we're getting all that content. And then the engineering problem would take care of itself, right? Because you've hired a lot of engineers that are able to deal with that. It's still a hard problem, but would be a good problem. The second part, though, is that because we have all the metadata, it's not that hard to recommend the content right now. So we have a title, tag, descriptions, and thumbnail. Even with those 4 pieces of content, which is like basic enough because it's audio. At the end of the day, it's not, some video where you have to analyze what's happening in the video. And this is what YouTube does, right? In terms of the title and thumbnail of the video, you can easily figure out how to recommend content in different ways. I mean, so for example, when I make a video with Palantir in it, the very nature of that word being in the title is going to allow that video to be seen by more people versus a video, if I talk about Plug Power or some other stock, right? So the metadata we get from all that content actually will enable the algorithm to be decently smart, and then transcribing the audio and then having, basic LLMs understand what's being said in the content and then being able to form a meaningful recommendation based on what they think is being said, what the summary they've created about the piece of content. That's in the future. We're not there yet, but that'll also be really valuable when it comes to recommending the content. Shout out to Joel in the chat. He said, I got the job at Tesla, guys. Congrats, man. Joel has been a longtime subscriber of this YouTube channel. I think he was here almost like a year and a half now. Shout out to you, man. He used to work at Lowe's. He applied to be, I believe, a technician at Tesla, if I'm not getting it wrong. That's phenomenal. This is the perfect job for you. You love Tesla. You're buying a Tesla, and now you work at Tesla. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal, man. Shout out to you. That's great. How have you streamlined your content creating, posting process to save time? I think, in the context of YouTube, my videos are not really highly edited, right? I talk in front of the camera. I take what I've talked about in front of the camera, and then I try to clip it up. So I've gotten pretty good at this over the past couple of years. I just talk. I rarely do second takes because I know how to speak. And so, people in the beginning of YouTube, people were like, oh, how long does it take you to script your videos? I was like, script? What are you talking about? Script? There's no script. I just talk. Like, I don't what is a script? Like, I'm never reading through a script, motherfucker. I'm just talking. And that, my debate background, I didn't know if it was going to play a role in being good at making YouTube videos, but I've been talking for 58 minutes. There's not really been a script. There's been a little outline on this notebook, and that's it. I just talk. And so I think that is a skill. I think anyone can learn that skill. I don't think I'm special for having that skill. But as a result of that, it streamlines the process to be able to then cut up those pieces of content, right? Like a podcast you do, cut it up into 4 or 5 videos, 4 or 5 Audeas, and then you have the thumbnail and title and you upload. So it takes, uploading YouTube videos takes maybe 2 or 3 hours a day collectively, along with the recording process. And that's it. And you get the job done. I'm very impressed by Amit's speaking skills. Thank you, Palantir Research. I appreciate it. What is weighted the most for the Audea algo, title or tags? Title. Definitely title. And that's why I'm saying there's such an opportunity. There's such an opportunity on Audea. The title. That's it. The title. Like, you have an interesting title. You have a title that has some level of uniqueness behind certain keywords. It's going to get recommended. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. This shit's going to pop up. Like, if you're a creator right now and you're like, I want a platform that's giving me more reach than some of the other platforms, it's Audea. It is Audea. I don't know how much more clearly I can say it's the platform. And if you shoot me a DM, I will press a button to guarantee you that shit gets more impressions. It's how it is on new platforms in the early days. You know, this is what Facebook was doing in 2005. TikTok did in 20. How do you think Charli D'Amelio became Charli D'Amelio? There was a TikTok. By the way, I have a fun story on this. There was a TikTok employee that had a little button called CD, Charli D'Amelio. Every time she posted, you press that damn button, make sure that she gets so many followers that she will never leave the platform. Now, I don't know if that happened, but I know that happened. And it was a fun story. I was in Kentucky the other week. Kentucky right here, Wildcats. And I had a friend who's applying to be a TikTok software engineer. He's in his third level of interviews. And he literally told me the guy at the interview process told him that once you work there for 2 years, you get a special access pass, which allows you to boost or not boost pieces of content. And I'm summarizing it, but like this is what the interviewer was telling him, right? It's like all these employees have these certain little controls, and it's on all these platforms, right? All these, I mean, Twitter, they have these little boosts. It's the ability for a piece of content to get more reach, right? And they kind of need it because if you post something really bad, like objectively, but it's not objectively bad enough to be taken down, that's where you get into the gray area. But nonetheless, all these platforms artificially promote content in the beginning because they're trying to get more people to get discovered. That's the same shit with Audea. That's going to happen on Audea. Is the Audea algorithm completed yet, or does it continue to get iterated over time? Definitely iterated over time. There's no algorithm on the planet that is completed. Every algorithm, whether it's Facebook or a new startup, has to have constant iteration, because the thing about algorithms is that consumers change, right? Consumers fundamentally change. And so if a consumer doesn't care that much about dogs as they did a year ago or even a week ago, that algorithm has to shift immediately. And so the variables that compose the ability for that algorithm to in real time determine that there is a shift in how this person is engaging with the platform in order to serve them the best content platform for them to not leave the platform needs to be an algorithm that is using thousands and thousands of variables when you get to a really big stage at scale, and creating new variables on top of them in order to be able to determine. So like likes is a basic variable, but what happens when someone almost presses like, or they like and unlike, right? They like it, but then they unlike. And what was the reason they unliked, right? You trigger the like, but then you unliked. Was there a certain level of insecurity they had for liking? Did they do it by mistake? And that is probably multiplied at thousands of levels, right? When you're talking about real scale. And as a result of that, you can then make that another variable that iterates on an algorithm. So algorithms are always iterating, and we're going to always iterate it as well. So Amit, when is Audea hiring so I can get those boost content button? I was talking about this with my co-founder last night, man. I'm just trying to make it to a seed round. I just got to make it to a seed round. If I can get to a seed round, we'll be hiring. But I got to get to a seed round. Right now, we have more than enough to be able to figure this shit out. But I got to figure this shit out. If I get to a seed round, then there's a shot. Got to get to a seed round. Maybe by the end of this year, maybe early next year, we'll see. But we got to do a lot of work to get there. So got to keep going. All right. That's it for me, everybody. Thank you all for joining. For the love of God, please follow me on Instagram. I am officially taking Instagram a lot more seriously. So please, we had 1,255 followers in the beginning of the day. Now we have 1,293. So we got about 40 new followers. I will follow back. I don't care who you are. I am following back. So please, 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 before you leave, follow on Instagram. Even if you don't use Instagram, just follow on Instagram so that the algorithm knows that we are getting some more followers. That's it for me. Thank you all for joining. We'll be back tomorrow. Leave in the comments another series name you have for this, because I called it Let Me Explain, but I think I might want to call it Startup Stories, something more to do with startups. Leave it in the comments any ideas you have for names for the series. And we'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. as usual, and we'll be talking about Audea, startups, and all of that good stuff. Titling is huge. I've seen big swings in CTR from switching up titles. Yeah, Palantir research. I mean, you're noticing this right now, right? When you have Palantir in a certain word, if you don't have Palantir in your videos, they're not going to do as well as if you do have Palantir. And if you have certain words around that word, it's all a basic game of psychology that is so algorithmically complex. But the nuance of it is, if you can be basic enough, it doesn't get that complex. It's a lot of shit. But at the end of the day, it drives attention and awareness. And attention and awareness is the only thing that matters in our society when you're trying to get anything done. I have a friend who never posted on social media for years, and now they're trying to be like the mayor of Philadelphia or some shit. Now I see them posting every single day. It's like, why? Well, you got to get people to know that you're running for mayor. right? It's like, it's just that simple. And there's like politicians will use Audea one day. You got to get your message out there. You got a 7-minute soundbite from an interview you did that you think is really awesome. If we can guarantee, or we can potentially guarantee that 7-minute soundbite gets in front of 20,000 people and they hear it, that matters. That's important. That's attention. That's awareness. That's marketing at scale. That's building an audience, community. Oh, why wouldn't you put your content on that platform just for a chance for it to get discovered by 20,000 people? Because that might be 20,000 people that vote for you at the end of the day. There's every person on the planet will use this platform if I figure out the marketing and execution around it, but everyone will use it if it works. We just got to get it to work. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining. It means the world. Follow on Instagram, please.